Hello everybody, Marty McConnell, the Off-Grid Gecko here, and today I want to talk a little bit about survival kits. So, I was dorking around today, took a Bic lighter. I've been watching videos and reading some articles on Altoids tin survival kits and thinking about that in the context of what I know now. And what I've sort of always known, and everybody kind of initially suspects, and you sort of know it in the back of your head whether you're carrying one or not. An Altoids tin is not going to save your ass in a SHTF scenario or as a bug out unit. If you go out to the woods and all you're left with is your precious Altoids tin and you get lost, you know, you might survive. I'm not saying you're screwed, but your survival is not going to be dependent on what's in that kit, generally speaking. So I've been reorganizing my pack this month, getting kind of lined up on the new year and taking all the things I've learned. So mainly restocking the med kit. I might do another video on that, but just sort of dorking around today. I went and I made this. Let me take the hair tie off of it. That just seemed like a good idea, and I ended up using that earlier because I went to town, didn't have one. But I took a Bic lighter and basically just wrapped about 3 feet of duct tape around the bottom, wrapped some of this stuff, jute twine, around the top. Jute twine's a nice little fire starter. It works for a good tinder, and not really putting a whole lot of effort in this, not really putting a whole lot of praise in it, and just trying to weigh the pros and the cons of taking the time to do something like this. And there's basically no expense here, right? I mean, this 3 feet of duct tape, give or take. I wasn't using a measuring stick, and I don't know how much twine, enough for about 10 or 12 wraps. Hardly enough to tie anything off with, but probably enough to get a fire going. And then of course trusty Bic lighter. It's like a little 3-in-1 kit. When I used to carry an Altoids tin in my pocket, I was in the oil field, and I would keep things in there, like a little rolled up piece of duct tape. And this wasn't a big Altoids tin. This was like one of those little minis that's like 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches or something. Just tiny little tin kits. I use them for putting pen nibs in and other things like that. And I went ahead and made a kit, and I had some good fishing line like wrapped around a bobbin. I had a razor blade like taped onto the back of it, and had 20 or 40 bucks in there, and just kind of a everyday carry. But I didn't really ever think of it as a survival kit. It was kind of more like a miniature mom purse. I might need something that's in there at some point, or want something to just make life a little easier. And rather than carry a bunch of little tiny crap around in my pocket, then it all has a place. It's in that little tin, and you can get to it kind of fast, deploy it fast. So things like toothpicks, salt and pepper packets. I think I had a little thing of hot sauce in there because for some reason every time I start craving hot sauce, nobody has any. I like to keep a little bottle in the car too, for the same reason, right? If I go to Taco Bell and they don't give me any hot sauce packets with my little burrito or whatever, then I just pull out my little hot sauce and boom, 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 we're in business. I think my rice is ready. Speaking of, go take care of that real quick. But anyways, this morning, this week, just thinking a lot about what is a survival kit. Like, what does that mean? What do people mean when they say survival kit, right? Because I think everybody's got an idea of what a survival kit is to them, and they automatically assume that everybody else in the world has the same concept to them, the same notion, right? Like, survival kit has to contain XYZ, it's for this set of mission parameters, whatever. But those actually vary from person to person, okay? So while some people focus on bushcraft, other people might focus on like bugging out to the woods, other people might be looking at you know, something like an inch kit where they want to take the supplies that are available to them and the tools that are in the bag to build essentially a new life somewhere else. Um, and then, of course, you've got little med kits that are survival kits in themselves in that regard, right? If you are suffering from some kind of serious trauma, you can stop the bleeding and call for help or whatever to, you know, to extend your own life. And the same thing, too, when I was taking helicopters back and forth offshore, they always gave us a life vest, right? A life preserver. It doesn't look like one of those orange things like you see in the store, though. It was just basically a jacket, had a little CO2 cartridge right here by your chest. It had a couple little pull things up here. So one of them was a primary, the other one was a backup, and what they did was pop that little CO2 canister, and then the thing inflates around your neck. But they also had a survival kit, always in the front right pocket. Like, you got pockets all over the thing that have different materials in them, but the issued vests that were on the helicopters that we were flying, I can't remember the name of the helicopter company off the top of my head, and probably better not to mention it anyways, but they always had like this little kit, and it was basically a little Ziploc bag. It's got a couple items in there, like the kind of things you'd throw in an Altoids tin, and it was geared around water survival. Like, you, if the airplane takes a dump, you end up in the water and you manage to escape from the aircraft, then you've got to worry about floating on the seas until Coast Guard search and rescue can get there and find you. So the kit was geared specifically towards that environment. It wasn't something that was going to be immediately helpful if you got lost in the woods, right? Because our entire thing was, we're flying over the Gulf of Mexico. There are no woods. There's just shark and barracudas and tunas and, you know, freezing water essentially. It's not frozen, but it's like the average water temperature in the Gulf of Mexico is something like 50 degrees Celsius, which would be about what, 10 or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, sorry, which would be about 10 Celsius, I guess. Yeah, so it doesn't seem real cold, but when you're surrounded by it and you're soaked in it, like, that's just gonna sap the heat out of your body. So try and stay warm, you know, keep treading water and find a group or whatever, you know. You go through all this training for the stuff, so I'm not going to go through and rehash all of it now. If you're interested in that, there's training classes available for water survival. But that was basically the gist, was you had this little survival kit and it had enough stuff in there that would be useful to you at sea. And I only wish I could remember some of the items in there, because I only really took one out and glanced at it one time, and the rest of the time it just sat there in my pocket. I never needed to deploy it. Okay, and when you're on ship, like, the lifeboats have survival kits built in underneath the seat and underneath the cab where the driver is, and just everywhere. So everybody in there's got an assigned seat, and whatever's under your seat, like, you're kind of in charge of that, because you got to get up, but you don't even know what it is half the time until everybody gets up and starts breaking the equipment out. I always told everybody I wanted the flashlight for reasons I won't go into. But yeah, what does a survival kit mean? What does it do? And I think when you get down to the core of it, to the heart of it, some of these bushcraft guys especially, and other survival experts, I mean, sometimes they take the whole survival kit thing too far. They're looking more at like a camping backpack, like everything you need to go hiking in the woods, from sleeping bag, tent, tug line, cordage, all this stuff that would be good for bushcraft or hiking or camping, and they consider the whole pack complete to be a survival kit, when your survival kit should really, in my opinion, you should really be focused on the gear itself and what you need to actually survive. So can you survive for 72 hours without food, water, whatever? Technically, I've done it. Wouldn't wish it on a snake, and your chances of coming back from that are not any better than mine were. And I just managed to pull myself up out of that situation. I'm not going to get into that either. That's something for maybe another time. But yeah, it all comes down to, what do you need to stay alive, not necessarily what do you need to be comfortable. And I think people make that they make that confusion. So they're talking about, oh, you need to have this $300 bushcraft knife so that you can go and baton wood and process firewood and do this and do all these camping chores, right, that you can do with a survival knife supposedly, and they won't accept anything less than that, when in fact just having a cutting tool of any kind for a real survival situation where you're just literally trying to survive is more important than brand or how well it's going to hold an edge. Because to me, survival is you're already in a situation where you're dead. You're essentially dead. I mean, if somebody doesn't find you or if you don't get help, you're going to die. And all that kit is for is extending that a little bit, right? Just keeping you alive long enough to be rescued, or long enough for the ambulance or air evac to show up, or long enough for the Coast Guard to come out and find you if you're in the ocean, or whatever. So if you're in the ocean, you want an EPIRB so that you've got a beacon that's, sending your signal out that alerts air and rescue as fast as possible, that kind of thing. So a lot of these things that when people think of camping in their survival kit, I think they're thinking more of going out and camping. And that's kind of how I tend to think of it too, right? Like, I put a lot of stock in my first aid kit now. So I've redone my first aid kit. It's not quite a trauma kit, but it's a lot closer to a trauma kit, because I realized I don't need half of this crap. I'm not going to use it anyways. If I get a cut on my finger, there, especially in a survival situation, there's probably something more pressing than me wasting time to take a band-aid out and put it on my finger, right? That finger wound might get infected, it might not, but in either case, it's not going to kill me before search and rescue finds me. I'm not trying to survive out in the woods for years and years and years, even though it's kind of what I'm doing here, but semantics, right? And life goals and things like that. So focus on survival gear. Maybe some of these little items aren't quite as useless as I've made them out to be over the years, because I'm always thinking like shelter, fire, keeping warm, being able to make repairs to your clothing, etc., etc., etc. Like, all this stuff is really more with a camping mindset. Like, I'm going out to the woods, I'm going to be gone for a week. I need to have enough that if I can't find my own food, or I can't procure a good source of water, a good clean source of water or something, just the stuff that I need to stay alive for a prolonged period of time and enjoy a little bit of comfort, that's a camping kit. Survival kit is strictly, I think, just trying to last as long as you can while you're searching for rescue. So in order of priority, people think food, water, shelter, fire. I think signaling and communications should actually be first on the list. If you've got a cell phone and it's working, then, and you have a signal and you can get out, then great, that's awesome. Like, this should be the first thing in anybody's survival kit, and I carry one around in my pocket every day, just like a lot of you do. It's what you need. If you can't get cell phone service, but you are in an area that has repeaters and you're familiar and you have a ham radio license, and you know how to operate one of these, a simple radio that can, this little guy is not very powerful, right? Like, if I'm trying to talk directly from this to another one of these, I've got line of sight for maybe 6 miles, and that's it under good conditions. But if I'm talking to a repeater, I can get online right now and key up one of 2 repeaters that's in my area from my house, and one of them's like 30 miles that way, the other one's like 20 miles that way, and those repeaters will actually carry my signal halfway across the state or all the way across the state. I talked to people down in Joplin, Missouri on one end, and talked to people over by St. Louis on the other end. You hop on the radio and you can really reach out and touch somebody. So if you understand like how repeaters work and you have a ham radio license, you're going to have to understand some of this. Communication device, signaling devices, signal mirrors, EPIRBs. I'm not expecting everybody to run out and buy an EPIRB, right? So I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's basically a beacon. It's got a bright flashing light on it, and it sends out a distress signal over the radio. Like, you activate that thing, and search and rescue's coming, because if you activated it by accident, then they're coming to arrest, or if you activated it on purpose to distract them or whatever, they're coming to arrest your ass. And if you activated it because you're in a survival situation, they are going to find you very, very quickly. Like, it's, if you want to have the best signaling device there is, that's it, EPIRB. I don't even know if anybody sells them online. I haven't looked it up, but it seems like if you're really serious about a survival kit, that's the one basic necessity that you're going to need. And you know, that's just from my understanding of how deep water survival works with the Coast Guard and vessels in the Gulf of Mexico. Like, EPIRB is your meal ticket. That's what's going to get you home alive if you survive the water. Okay, so then the next step in that particular scenario is surviving the water, or surviving the woods, or surviving some urban environment that you find yourself stuck in and maybe not the best neighborhood. A lot of times this situational awareness and just being familiar with your surroundings, know what's going to kill you, know what's not going to kill you. Don't just pick up random mushrooms and start eating everything because you're in the woods and it's all natural. Like, 90% of the crap out there in those woods can kill you. So just be cautious about what you do, I guess, is the big thing. And being prepared to stay alive. I mean, that's the mental mindset. Starting a fire, yes, is incredibly important. It'll keep you warm, and it is a signaling device. So if someone already knows where you are, they're homing in on your location, and they see your fire burning at the spot where you say you are, somebody's going to come out and investigate. As long as that distress signal's been sent out. So everything ties really back to communications first. If you really want the smallest survival kit possible, it's going to be some kind of emergency beacon. I really should have looked that up before I did this video. I'm doing this kind of off the cuff, and haven't really put a lot of thought into it. But those emergency beacons, I know the Coast Guard uses them, and you can get them for boats and stuff. Maybe there's something like that for land, and maybe if there isn't, and you're an entrepreneur and a capital, you know, you're throwing finances at new technology or whatever, then a venture capitalist, like, let's invest some money in this thing. Let's make this happen, because that basically replaces, and these things nowadays could probably be about as small as an Altoids tin. That would be an Altoids tin that would really save your life right there. So in thinking along those lines, like calling this survival kit, that a survival kit. Everybody calls everything a survival kit nowadays. It's just like become a common buzzword that we use. We never stop really to think about what does survival mean. So even my pack that I carry out in my it's in the woods, it's just my pack. I don't call it a survival kit. It's not just survival gear. There's a lot of stuff in there that I use all the time. I do have emergency supplies in there, so it's kind of an emergency pack. It's got a badass first aid kit in it now that can actually be used to dress heavier injuries, and I'm learning more of those skills all the time. So that's great, but that pack itself is not a survival kit. Your survival kit is basically something you should have on you all the time, whether you're in the woods backpacking or not. My backpack's usually with me, but what's always with me is a cell phone, my knife, off-grid gecko knife, and a lighter. And it may not be this lighter, it may be any old Bic. Like, these three items, cell phone, knife, Bic lighter, that's your survival kit. That will keep you alive, and you don't have to spend any money on this. Like, if you're watching this video, you probably already have these three things with you all the time. And in fact, some of you are also going to be carrying like a defense pen and a pistol and, you know, maybe an Altoids Band-Aid pack or whatever. Like, we have all this stuff on our keychain, headlights, any kind of flashlight. Like, we carry around all this stuff, and then we think, oh wait, I need to make a survival kit. Well, you have your survival kit. Like, that's your basic means of staying alive, signaling for help, and getting somebody looking for you. Another part of your survival kit is just telling somebody where you're going to be. You know, hey, Joe Schmo, I'm going up to this new area of the woods. It's over in this region. I'm going to explore around a bit, maybe go on a hunting trip. You know, if I'm not back in, like, if you don't hear from me for a couple days, send somebody looking. Like, that's probably the number one key to your survival, is for somebody to know that you're missing. And that all goes back to communications and signaling, because then they can signal, and your communication in that case is a lack of communication. Like, so-and-so didn't call, they're not answering their phone, I know they were here, somebody needs to go looking for them, they've been missing for 24 hours. Like, that's really the key to it right there. Anyways, this is getting long. I'm going to try and cut it short. I wish there was something I could say to kind of sum this all up and make it neat and tidy. But at the end of the day, all these little kits that we're fascinated with, from get home bags to nest bags to inch bags to bug out bags or whatever, like, the whole thing is not a survival kit, and a bug out bag is definitely not a survival kit. Let's face it, it's a camping kit. You're getting the fuck out of Dodge and you're going somewhere to not be found. That's totally different than trying to be found and trying to survive long enough to get back to a hospital, because I mean, that would take you right back to where you started from. If you're evacuating from whatever. If you're evacuating from a hurricane, then it becomes more of a survival kit, but it's more of a let's get to a hotel or get to a family member's house or just camp out in the back of the truck until we get where we're going kind of thing. So there's all these different kits, right? A truck kit for emergencies, all sorts of emergency kits. I don't think any of them would really qualify as a survival kit. A survival kit's going to be your basic pack that's just, you know, maybe a candy bar in there to keep your morale up, some kind of signaling device or several signaling devices, a way to keep warm, you know, by starting a fire maybe, and that's maybe even diverging too much into the camping gear and not enough on other things, but like some hot hands, a pair of gloves, that kind of stuff. And you could build it out as much as you want, right? You know, like, it doesn't matter if it's this big or it takes up a whole backpack, as long as you're carrying it when the time comes and when it matters. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't try to go overboard on your survival kit, but also don't confuse some of these standard Altoids tin like makeups. This lighter right here is not a survival kit. I mean, yes, that fire right there may not look like much on camera, but if somebody's looking for you with infrared, that's gonna stick out like a freaking explosion on their film. So yeah, this could be used as a signaling device, but so I guess in a way this could be a survival kit right here, or just carrying a lighter in general. But if you want to dress out a survival kit strictly for survival, the idea is get noticed, get help, get out. You know, have somebody's coming to look for you, make sure you can be found, or that you can get somewhere, that you can get service, or that you can be found. That's all you need to do. A survival situation really shouldn't last longer than about 24 to 48 hours, 72 at the worst. After that, you're kind of screwed anyway, so then your camping pack's really going to be like your savior, but the actual survival kit of being found and getting evac'd, that should be the primary focus of a survival kit, in my opinion. So if you're out on the ocean, that's an EPIRB. If you're on the ocean at all, if you have a boat that's seaworthy and you don't have an EPIRB, you're probably wrong, and you might even be breaking the law. I'm not sure what the regulations are on that, but like, think in that mindset. Think like a sailor on the ocean, right? There's no trees around. They're not going to be chopping wood and making fires and like purifying water from a stream and doing all this other crap. And like, they're literally, the first thing they need to focus on is getting found and getting rescued. And I think applying that mentality to a survival kit is going to free up the rest of your pack, where you can focus on the mission objective for whatever it is you're trying to do. If you're trying to do bushcraft stuff and you want to see how long you can go in the woods, then focus your pack on bushcraft stuff, and your survival kit might just be something as simple as a radio or a cell phone. because you've got the rest of the stuff supplemented in your pack anyways. Yeah. Anyways, that's it. I don't want to rant on forever. I just wanted to kind of cover this topic and open the discussion up a little bit. So if you've got views on this, like, drop it in the comment below. I want to open the discussion. Let's talk about what a survival kit actually means. Like, what is the definition of that? Is it this? Is it this? Is it my backpack full of crap, my first aid kit? Like, what's a survival kit? What does that mean to you? And does that really encapsulate what you need to actually survive versus being comfortable while you're waiting on rescue or trying to hike your way back home? Let me know what you think. I'll talk to you later. Bye.